What's up, everyone? We've got Ben Nemtin in the studio. Well, his studio, his apartment here in Venice. It's a beautiful space, and they have a whole community here. But wanted to shed a light into Ben's life. He is one of the founders of The Buried Life, which you guys got to check out. It's amazing. It's about basically creating your moments and creating the life that you want, your dreams. And we're going to unpack that today. But I feel like creating your moments and creating the life that you want is living a neon life. And that's what this podcast is all about. It's about creativity. It's about living a full, colorful life. And I'm excited to have you on.
Thank you.
Thanks
Good to be here.
Absolutely. So Ben, let's dive into it. Let's hear your story of how you suffered from depression in high school and how that catalyzed. Tell us the story about how that catalyzed The Buried Life.
Yeah. So I was graduating high school. I was in a pretty good place, really good place. Like I had an academic scholarship to one of the best universities in Canada. I had just made the U19 Canadian rugby team, which was a big deal for me because this is sort of my biggest dream. And Canada rugby is a big sport. So I lived in the epicenter of rugby Canada, in Victoria, BC. And so, I had a great group of friends, loving family, and I was excited to go to university, and life was good. And I played fly half, which is for those of you that don't know rugby, it's sort of like, to give a football analogy is like the quarterback and the field goal kicker in one position. So a lot of pressure. Yeah. And I had missed a big kick, and it had sort of haunted me. I couldn't get over it. And as I was training for the World Cup in Paris, I started thinking about the kicks and my play at the World Cup, and I started getting anxiety about it, and I started losing sleep. And I got to the point where I couldn't sleep. And this just totally threw me off. And I started to slide into a depression. And I'd never been through anything like this before. I didn't know what was going on, and I couldn't really leave the house. It got so bad that I had to drop out of school. I got dropped from the rugby team, and I ultimately was sort of confined to my parents' house, and I was terrified. I didn't know what was going on, and it got to the point where my friends had to come and pull me out of the house that summer. So it lasted months, and they pulled me out of the house, and they brought me to a new town where we worked for that summer before we went, so ultimately back to school. And slowly I started feeling back to myself, and I got a job, and I started feeling more self-worth, and really I started to meet inspiring people from around the world, right? I met these young people that had started their own businesses, that had started to, I just had never met young people that had traveled like the people I had been meeting. And so I came back from that trip, and I made the decision to only surround myself with people that inspired me. I was like, I only want to surround myself with people that are going to bring me up. Because like in high school, you have your, sample size of friends.
Right.
You can't choose outside of that. But when you get outside of the world, you realize, oh yeah, like I can find my tribe. And so I made this decision, and it completely changed the path of my life, right? This is probably the greatest decision that I've ever made, looking back. And because I got home and I sort of surveyed sort of my friends, and I was like, okay, there was this one kid that was a filmmaker that I knew from our neighborhood. His name's Johnny, and I called him up. I said, Johnny, let's make I'd always wanted to make like a movie. Like, let's make a movie. Like, you make movies. Like, I don't know how, but let's make one. And we gathered two other friends, Dave and Duncan, and we started talking about this movie that we wanted to make. And we didn't know what it was going to be about. We just had all these things that we wanted to do, but we weren't doing them. And serendipitously, Johnny got assigned a poem in English class at first year university at McGill called The Buried Life. And this poem spoke to this feeling that we were feeling of like feeling buried. Like we had all these things that we wanted to do, but we weren't doing them because we felt buried by the day-to-day, work, school, whatever. And you have these moments when you get inspired and you get momentum, but that gets stifled by the monotony of the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my God, this poet 150 years ago is really like speaking our language here. Let's take this name, The Buried Life. And we thought, okay, how do we unbury ourselves? And we decided to ask a question: what do you want to do before you die? And from that question and the thought about death, like actually kind of shook us enough to think about what was important. We made this list of the ultimate bucket list of everything we've ever dreamed of doing. And we thought, okay, we're going to go after this list. Come hell or high water, we're going to try and go after as many things as possible. And this list was things we never really thought we could do. we just pretended we could do anything.
Yeah.
And we go after it. So like make a TV show, go to space, play basketball with President Obama, cover Rolling Stone, like sit with Oprah, things that, we just decided, if we could do anything. And then on the flip side of that, we decided every time we cross something off our list, we're going to help a total stranger do something that they want to do on their list.
Yeah.
So we'll ask them the question, what do you want to do before you die? And if we can help them, we would. And that was sort of just felt like a natural thing to do, because also we wanted to learn from other people.
Yeah.
We're 20 years old, 19 years old. We didn't know what we wanted to do. So we thought maybe we can learn something from people along the way, and we can help them if we can. And so, we essentially just pulled together a used RV, made matching t-shirts, got a camera on eBay, built our own website. We pretended we had a production company to cold call companies to raise money, and a juice company paid for our gas. And it's kind of all we needed, right? And we just took this 2-week road trip, and it was only supposed to be 2 weeks, Yeah. And this sort of mix of magic and luck happened on the road, where people started hearing about it and they wanted to help. And so they would see our list online. They'd be like, hey, I saw you wanted to ride a bull, number 9. My friend owns a bull ranch. He can help you. Or you want to make a toast at a stranger's wedding. My friend's getting married. I'm the best man. I can sneak you in,
That's amazing.
And then people sending us their dreams, asking to, with help for stuff on their list. And we just didn't expect that.
Yeah.
And so, long story longer, after the first year, we just thought we got to keep doing this. And so we would do it every summer, and ultimately it just continued to bloom and, led to one of the big things on the list is number 53, make a TV show. And so, and kind of write a book, and all these things that we never thought were possible started falling off the list.
Yeah.
We sort of got to this point where like, oh my God, like you can do anything,
Yeah.
And also help anybody, because the only way that we would cross things off is through the help of other people. And the only way we helped other people is other people helping us help other people. So, it's been this crazy, 10, 11, 12 year journey where we sort of got to this point where like, wow, you can really do anything that you want. Yeah. And this idea of a list is kind of morphed into this lifestyle, this way of being, of understanding and subconsciously choosing things that mean the most to you. Like prioritizing the things that really are going to bring you the most joy. Yeah. And that is kind of what it's about.
Absolutely. Love your story, man. I mean, you have so many stories that I would love to unpack in here. I think, I would love to hear the story of playing basketball with Obama. How did that happen?
Oh man, it's a very epic story. I'll try and give you the tent poles.
The tent poles, great.
Okay, so it started in 2008 when President Obama got elected. Johnny called me and he says, Benny, let's play basketball with the president on the list. And I laughed. Because I knew he was calling me from his friend's laundry room that he rented for $200 a month.
Right.
And like this felt like the most impossible thing we could ever do. And I told him that, and he said, yeah, but like it would be really awesome. And so I couldn't argue, and I wrote it down. And then it's a funny, I think we'll get back to this, but like writing it down that day was the first step and the most crucial step, because it started the wheels in motion. Mm-hmm. And so what we did is we drove to Washington D.C., right? And we have this like old purple transit bus that we drove down, and we started literally by pounding the pavement and asking people on the street if they knew anyone at the White House, right? Which like clearly did, not to us clearly, but in hindsight, did not work.
Yeah.
But what we found out is that you could contact your local congressman, right? Mm-hmm. You can get their information online because you can send them an email. So we contacted all the local congressmen and anybody we could find online that worked in Capitol Hill. We shot them an email explaining why we wanted to play basketball with the president. Yeah. And we were sort of basically started campaigning in DC to play basketball with the president. We'd start with lower level meetings, and if they liked us and the meeting went well, they'd vouch for us and send word above saying, hey, these guys are good guys. Like, I support their mission. Yeah. And we slowly, worked our way up the ladder in Washington. and got up to the Secretary of Transportation. And we're in a meeting with the Secretary of Transportation, and in the room, he calls the White House. And he says, I just want you guys to know, these are good guys. They have my support. I think what they're doing is great. Because we had come from this place that, like, look, the president should play basketball with us, because if he does, it'll prove that anyone can do anything. If 4 regular kids can play basketball with the president, you know, it'll be a message to youth that, you know, you can do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so certain people got behind it, and ultimately we get an email back from the White House, and we're excited, and we open up the email, and it says, no chance. Right? They're like, thank you for your interest, but it's not going to happen. But we found out that the president played these basketball games, and they were set up by a guy named Reggie Love, who is the president's body man. He would send out a text to a few select people in the administration saying, day of, basketball game going down like 7:30 tonight at this court.
No way.
Yeah, and we're like, we got to get to Reggie Love. Like, he's our inside man. And we heard that he worked out at the Y every morning at 5:30. So I would go to the YMCA every morning, and he didn't work out there. Like I didn't find him. And we knew that he played for Duke. He had played for Duke basketball.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't even be saying this, but we ended up finding someone who interviewed him at Duke, a writer, and we were able to get his email, and we started sending him emails being like, hey, we've reserved this court. You should come with the president. Like, just how he had set up the games. No response. Finally, we had to leave DC. And I get a call on my cell phone. It's a blocked number. And I pick it up. And the first thing that this person says is, what's this I hear about you want to play basketball against the president and I? And it was Reggie Love. And I'm like, yes, like, sir, this is why we want to do it. And he's like, you know what? I like this. Like, I think I can make this happen. Give me 2 weeks. I'll run it by the communications team. If they're in, you're good. And he was like, he thought it was going to happen, right? He was excited about it. And we get a call back. And he says, I talked with communications team. It's not going to happen. And we're like, at this point, we're like, we're done, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, I think he felt bad. And he's like, if you guys ever come back to DC, let me know. And we were back in DC, and he actually invited us to the White House to see the basketball courts.
Yeah.
And so we come back to the White House, and we meet Reggie, and he shows us around the West Wing, and we get this incredible tour of the White House. And he says, I can do this because the president's not in town. And he shows us the where the tennis courts used to be, and there's White House basketball courts, and there's a presidential hoop. There's basically 2 logos on the hoop. There's one presidential logo on the basketball, which is like his basketball. And we're shooting around, and all of a sudden, President Obama surprises us on the court. Strolls in, says, I heard you guys were in town. Thought the least I could do is shoot a basket with you. And, we're obviously completely floored.
Yeah.
And it, the thing about President Obama is, like, he's such an incredible human being that right away you feel like you're friends with him. And he's totally disarming. He's kind of like that, in high school you had your friend's dad who was like the coolest dad ever.
Yeah.
You end up just like hanging out with your friend's dad.
Yeah.
Like he was like that. And you immediately forgot he was the president, and we were shooting around with him, trash talking him, with shots and stuff like that. And there was a White House photographer there, and took some photos. And it was,
Is that Pete?
yeah,
Pete
yeah,
Souza?
yeah. And so it was an incredible day. Just because of what happened, but for us at that point, that was really a moment when we reflected, after, just sort of thinking, wow, this is totally bananas. Like, you can really do anything you put your mind to. And, there's a really funny story of how we found out actually like how it happened later, which we can talk about later. But the point is, like, that day when I wrote it down with, from the call with Johnny, that really started the wheels in motion. And I don't think that we would have ever gone after it if we wouldn't have done that. I think because, when you write something down, so we all have these things that we want to do, or these aspirations, dreams, bucket list items. You call them whatever you want, but they're all intangible. They're all thoughts until you either speak them, or write them down. And by writing them down, you make something that's real. You sort of create this tangible thing. And I think that that's really one of the first steps to breathing life into your goal is to write it down. I think it's simple thing to do, and it could be on a piece of paper, it could be, digitally. But I think it also creates a certain amount of accountability,
Absolutely.
which is important. And that started the process, and then we just told everybody, everyone we came into, hey, we're trying to play basketball with the president. Can you help us? And I think that talking about these big dreams or any type of goal that you have is also important, because you would be surprised about who will help you. And again, creates this sort of accountability when you bring other people into the loop and they want to support you and you're moving forward towards that goal.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, and I think there's a whole idea of, even speaking about it, but what's your come from? I think that's a huge thing, because you guys have, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this, but there's an authentic intention behind what you guys are doing, whereas a lot of people are like, it's like for their personal gain or for which, then we can talk about like law of attraction and things like that. But, I'd love to hear what your guys' like come from was in pursuing all of these amazing things.
Yeah. In the beginning, I think that what works about it and has worked about it is it just always came from a very authentic place. Like it's just stuff that we genuinely wanted to do. And in the beginning, when we were making this documentary, we thought the documentary was going to be about helping people, and we would do our stuff on the side because we wanted to do it. But we thought like, it's a little self-serving just to like go out and do our own stuff, right? Like we, the doc should be about helping other people. But like we still want to do our own stuff, so we're still going to do it. And we were surprised that people wanted to help us do our own things, right? And they got inspired by it. And looking back over the past, however so many years, one of the big realizations is that by doing what you love, you inspire other people to do what they love. And that's a really profound, simple, amazing truth, because it's a win-win. You get to do what you love.
Absolutely.
And you also inspire other people to do it. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, right? Just by following your own path. First of all, I'm sure you've had people come to you be like, hey, you've inspired me to do something similar, or whatever it is that I want to do. Also, you don't even know what the ripple effect of that is. And I think if more people did that, the world would be a much better place, because I think that ripple effect goes very, very far. And that's just something that we stumbled on. And so that's kind of why, we keep doing it, right? Like there is this sort of, this power in that's really pure and really, really cool. And so that's been behind everything that we've always done. And we've always just tried to stay as true to ourselves as we can. And I think that's what's great about working with some friends is like you have that kind of, if someone gets, out of perspective or whatever, they just bring you right back. And for us, it's always been like, hey, we're no different than you, right? Like that has been our mantra from the beginning, because it's true. Like we have no special abilities. And that's why with the show and with everything, we were like, MTV doesn't help us with anything on our list. It's always just us, because that would cannibalize the whole premise of Buried Life, which is like 4 regular dudes just going out to try and make it happen. And I think that's really sort of like kept the whole thing honest the whole time.
100%. Yeah, no, I'd love to hear your TED Talk. You talk about the 6 points of actually creating this life, and I'd love to share with the audience what those are, because I think that's very helpful and useful things to, in a sense, create your moments and create your life and create a space where you can do the things that you love.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so this kind of came from looking back over all the list items that have been crossed off and looking at the successes and the failures, and looking at consistencies that came up with the successes, and sort of like pulling those out to say, okay, what do we do again and again and again that works with these big goals? And the thing that I think is important is, even before you start to create like some real honest intention and think about why you want to do the things. Even before that, take the time to think about, what I mean? Because we're all moving pretty quickly, and we don't take take those times of silence. And so just sort of sit in and think about like what's important to me, not my parents, my friends, my, the community. Like what really gets me excited. Like Tim Ferriss has a good quote about, if it's hard to think about what's going to make you happy. So just what gives you that feeling of excitement when you think about it, those butterflies in your stomach. And that's really what I agree, like what you're going for is that kind of those butterflies in your stomach. So, so think about what's important. And I think the second thing is to, as I said before, write it down, because you make it real, and I think we should start thinking about our dreams as projects instead of dreams, because, dreams have a funny way of staying dreams. But, if you think about your dream as a project, like a work goal, you automatically start to break it down into steps, and you think about what's the first thing I need to do, what's the second thing. And that's really what you should do with your dreams, right?
Yeah.
Like is start to break it down, and then, after that, just prioritize it like you do your work.
Right.
Right. And then the third would be talk about it, because if you don't talk about it, no one can help you.
Right.
Right. And I think that people sometimes don't talk about what they really want to do because, or their true ambitions, because they're afraid that if other people know, they might make fun of them, or maybe if they fail, people might know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a valid fear until you break down really what's behind that and what that fear is. And I think that ultimately failure is an amazing thing, because I think it's not just an opportunity for growth, it is growth. Like I think that it either forces a pivot that will change your direction that you're needing to go, or at the very least you learn something about yourself and you grow. Yeah. And then the fourth would be to this idea of creative persistence, like we were talking about before, that you're going to hear no a lot, but it doesn't always mean no. It sometimes means not now. And I think entrepreneurs are successful because they don't stop. It's just that consistent persistence that it's not necessarily bullheaded where you continue to do the same thing again and again. Yeah. But thinking about creative ways to get around the problem that ultimately people will respect. Yeah. And sort of like, and also will you kind of galvanize this momentum as well. Like, give you a pretty silly example. One of the things that we wanted to do was to break into the Playboy Mansion. Right. So this is like an outrageous like idea, but we didn't want to pay the stupid amount of money for a ticket, and we basically found out that the theme of the party was Willy Wonka meets Candyland, and we built this. We got this essentially a stripper cake, or like a cake that you can hide into, and we decorated it like the party, and we dressed up two of my friends like Willy Wonka, like Oompa Loompas basically. Yeah. And delivered it to the back door of the mansion at like 5 p.m. and got with a truck that we had rented and pretended that we had this delivery for the Playboy Mansion, and with the two friends hidden in the bottom of the cake, like delivered it and hid it in the back of the mansion, and for like 5 hours they waited in that cake. Oh my god. And had no idea where they were, jumped out, got in the party, and security thought they were actually working the party. And so they got free reign of the whole party, and we shot all this footage and got in, and it was hilarious because I never thought it was so outrageous. I just thought it would never work. But sometimes those ideas are the ones that do work. And so, and then the last two, I guess, would be to think audaciously, because like most people don't believe that they can do great things, so they shoot for mediocre goals, which means that the highest competition is around mediocre goals. So if you shoot for unrealistic goals, there's less competition. You actually have a higher chance of getting things done. Yeah. And then finally would be just to help others, because it fills you up in a way that doing things for yourself doesn't. And also, when people see you out there doing great, like helping others, they want to help you. Yeah. Yeah. So that is that's the secret. It's like, you help others, and I swear that's really what karma is, I believe, is that like people sort of see that and then they it comes full circle because they want to help you because they see you out there.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Yeah, I love how you guys helped that woman get the bionic arm.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
That's a great story. Great
Yeah,
story.
yeah.
How'd that come about?
We saw a hashtag on Twitter called was it Hand for Tori, and it was her friends that had created this hashtag to try and raise awareness to get their friend Tori, who was born with one hand. Her dream is to have a bionic arm, and bionic arms are very expensive, so they wanted to help make it happen and raise awareness. And we saw the hashtag, and we just contacted this manufacturer of bionic arms, and we said, hey, can we have a bionic arm for Tori? Like, she's always wanted one. And they said yes. It's a great company called Hanger Clinics. And we surprised Tori with it and then followed her through the weeks of physical therapy, which were also donated, to learn how to use the arm. And then we're there when she used it for the first time. And and her dad was there and her friends were there. And it was a really special moment, and also cool because I'd been texting with her like the last little while, and she's at university at Bowling Green, and she's working at an ice cream shop, which I thought was cool.
That's awesome.
Scooping ice cream, yeah.
Bowling Green.
Yeah.
Wasn't that where the Bowling Green massacre was?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Oh,
Bowling Green University, yeah.
Too funny.
Yeah.
So let's jump back a little bit. How did you go, unpack how you went from depression and started climbing your way out of that mental hole? Because that's a huge thing, I think, that a lot of people struggle with.
Totally. Yeah. And it's a crisis right now.
Yeah.
It's a very big issue that a lot of people aren't talking about. And it's a crisis that is at the point where every 30 seconds around the world, someone takes their own life.
Wow.
Yeah. And in this country, every 15 or 16 minutes. And the devastating, it's all just a lot to take in, and the fact that guys take their own life 5 times as much as women. Wow. Is also shocking. And I think that for me, it's like, okay, you sit back and hear that and you're like, okay, fuck, like what do you do? What do I do about this? And I think that one of the things that can be done is to break the stigma around mental health, and by doing that, by promoting healthy, productive conversations, because too many people are struggling in silence, thinking or feeling like they can't share what's going on.
Yeah.
And that is not the case, and they are not alone. And I felt alone, and I felt like I couldn't talk with anyone or that anyone would really understand.
Yeah.
And so I think that, I think there's 2 things. One, for those, in order to break the stigma, I don't actually think that it's on the 1 in 5 people that struggle with mental health to break that stigma. I think it's on the 4 out of 5 that don't struggle to make that 1 in 5 feel cool about or okay about talking about what's going on.
Right.
And that I think it can happen in a variety of ways. I think it's just, if you see someone that you think is going through a hard time, it's actually just talking to them and just being like, hey, are you okay? Or sending them a note, and instead of sort of talking around them and, texting your friend being like, hey, what's up with Mark? Like, he seems like fucked up.
Right.
It's texting Mark and be like, hey, Mark, what's up?
Yeah.
And that can save someone's life. Like, it really can, just by showing up and being a human, you know? And I think also just having these conversations help, because this is a part of life, I think that, and a lot of times we talk about our ups all the day. We just want to talk about the great things we're doing and how great we are. But we don't talk about the downs. And that is just as important, if not more, to talk about, because, I think that you learn so much about yourself in those dark places. Yeah. And by talking about them, I think you help so many other people that it can relate, and you just become, sort of, more human, and so for me, it was really about learning the things that I needed to be healthy, right? Like always worked out my body, and like would always make sure that physically I'm very in shape, but would never take the time to do that for my mind.
Yeah.
And what does that look like for me? It's things like meditation. It's things like getting enough sleep. Everyone needs a certain amount of sleep, and like I need to get 8 hours, 7-8 hours. I got to make sure I get that. Making sure that I'm not working too hard and like really grinding myself to the bone so that I don't have time that is like, it sort of like balances me out. And talking with people, talking with people like friends that understand me, or talking with a therapist that really like can help me give me the tools that I need just to grow and deal with tough, difficult, challenging situations. And I think that's another stigma that needs to be broken is talking with, a therapist.
Oh, absolutely.
Because like everyone should be so lucky to talk with a therapist. Like this is like a life coach that can help you be a better person, understand yourself, navigate decisions that are difficult. And it's sort of shunned as if, oh wow, like you need help. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like if you want to play basketball, like you have a basketball coach, because they know more about basketball than you. So that's what a therapist is, except for life that you're doing all the time, instead of just, when you're playing basketball. Like this is everything that you're doing. You may as well have someone to help you, be a better human, or just understand yourself, and someone that's an expert. So that, like, I understand why, but I think like if you really start to like unravel what that is, it's like it shouldn't be a freaking stigma. I think that it's like everyone should have someone they can talk to and feel okay to talk about, whether it's a friend or a professional.
100%.
So those two things have definitely helped me. And
it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting you say therapy, because I just started with a new therapist, and it's huge. Like you can unpack so many things and learn about yourself. And oddly enough, I interviewed Vienna Farron, who is Connor's fiance, and she owns a practice in New York, and we talked a lot about like finding a good therapist, because there's I had a therapist that wasn't working for a long time, so make sure you find a good one.
Totally. And that's the thing, like it just takes time to find the right person. Like that's the hardest part, is you have to go through a ton of different people to find someone that you like talking to. Because you got to think, you got to find someone that you connect with, you have a vibe with, that you respect, that understands you. And you don't find that in friends very often, right? It's very, few and far between. So you're talking about that same type of bond that you got to build. And that just takes time, and that's okay. You just got to like know that. Like if you don't know that going in, you could get really frustrated.
Right.
But just know that you're going to like, swipe left on like a lot of therapists. And right, I guess. It's been a while since I've been on the dating apps. So, and then like, you just move through a bunch, and eventually you will find someone. And that's what I got lucky with in college, is like, I started talking with a counselor at university that was just provided, and just so happened that he was a cool guy and I liked him, and he was smart. And so I continued to go back to him. And so it's I think it's important,
Highly important. One of the common threads I've found also in very successful people is meditation. So it's funny that you mentioned that. What kind of meditation do you practice, and how has it helped you?
I practice TM, Transcendental Meditation, thanks to my parents. Actually, they practice and made me learn, when I was about 19 or 20. My mom actually said, ironically enough, before I die, I want you to do two things. One is learn Transcendental Meditation, and the other is do Landmark Forum, which is sort of like a training, personal training growth thing. And I gravitated towards TM. That was something that I really I used as a tool for times when I'm very, very tired. Let's say I have like a big meeting, or when I was school, I had an exam, I would do it before. If I have a talk, every time I speak, I meditate before I speak, and it just helps get me grounded and centered and focused. And also, if I can't sleep, I'll meditate, and it's just a really good tool to have kind of in your toolbox. And I would like to do it more. Like, I probably do it. I'm getting better at doing it every day, but I like to do it more.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things that helpful. My sister actually works at Headspace, which is a great meditation app, and you can do, for those of you who may not have meditated before and think that it's the barrier of entry is high, which sometimes it feels like it is. Headspace is, you can do 2-minute meditations guided. You can do 5-minute meditations guided, and it's a good way to kind of jump into meditation. And I think it's a good practice.
Cool. Yeah, it's great. Love transcendental. I practice Vedic, which is, I think, the same thing. Mm-hmm. Mantra based, 20 minutes twice a day.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's amazing.
And you do twice a day?
I do, for the most part. Yeah. Some days I miss the afternoon, but typically every morning.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a very helpful tool. I definitely agree with that. So, I think I wanted to talk to you about, because did you do Landmark Forum?
Yeah, I did.
Because I know that definitely opens up a space of thought, of possibility, right? So how did you move from that depression state to really believing that anything is possible? Because that really is a belief.
Yeah, totally. So I don't think it was Landmark. I think that I did Landmark when I was younger, and I pulled some things that I really liked about it, but I don't know if that was the catalyst for me sort of like triggering something new. But I do think that in all those types of the trainings, there are things that you take and there's things that you leave behind, and you find things that resonate with you, and like you rock and roll, right? Like, but for me, it came back to the people that I was surrounding myself with. And one of my particular friends started a clothing line out of nowhere in college. So he took out a loan, started this really cool clothing line with no experience or, family in fashion, just like launched this line. And I was like, wow, that was just cool. Like, I just was really, how did you do that? And I just wanted to get involved, because like, I just wanted to be a part of this thing. And I asked him, I said, hey, can I get involved? Is there anything I can do? And he said, yeah, like if you can help like get the word out. And on the cover of the national newspaper in Canada, there was this article, and it was on this, it said, if Josh says it's cool, it's cool. And it was this guy, Josh Spear, who like had with coolhunting.com was like the first like cool like curation website. Right. So like he would post things that he thought was cool. And I thought, I think he's going to like my friend's line. And I was able to get a featured blog on his site of my friend's line. And I was just shocked by how easy it was. Like, I just emailed him. And it sort of like made me think like, wow, I guess these things aren't as hard as you think, you know? And then I thought, well, if he made a clothing line, like, what do I want to do? And that's when I started thinking about making the movie. And I saw a Facebook video that Johnny had posted, the filmmaker, and I was like, yeah, like I want to do something like that. And then I called him, and it was really then surrounding myself with these 3 other guys that our momentum continued to sort of whip us up, where we were like, well, why can't we do that? Why can't we do that? Like the original list, oddly enough, like we were having trouble thinking about what we wanted to make a documentary about. Yeah. And so we made a list of all the things that we wanted to make a documentary about. Cops are coming for me. And we made a list, and then we came back to the table. We were talking through Skype, and we went through all these things we want to make a documentary about, and everyone was like, oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. And then someone said, well, can't we just do all these things? And that's kind of where this whole like list came from. Yeah. And so I got triggered by the friend who made the clothing line, and then sort of continually by the people that were around me. So
Yeah.
And then it was just gradual, right? Like we were just, following our guts and just going for it.
100%.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's about surrounding yourself with the people that are going to catalyze you forward and inspire you.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
And think big. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you guys have done all this stuff, and what's next? Like what's on your bucket list?
Yeah. So definitely make a movie, which is what we started Buried Life. That's what it is really. For me at the beginning we just thought it was going to take 2 weeks to make the movie, not like 11 years. So we're now sifting through all this footage that we've been filming the last, decade or so, and have pieced together a long rough cut of it and cut together a trailer. And we have an amazing director on board. And the final list item is go to space, so we're starting to look at what does that look like. And, we're almost through all 100 list items. And this film will definitely be the biggest of them all, right? Like this is sort of the piece that we leave behind. We've always envisioned it. Do you ever see The Endless Summer? It's a surf film, of course, right? So this iconic like surf film that is emblematic of so much more. It's sort of like searching for the perfect wave, and but really it's it's a lot about life. And so this is sort of what we want. It's easy to reference The Endless Summer, but like we want it to be like that for younger generations, to sort of like a touch point for them to be like, oh man, like I can do this stuff, and because at the end of the day, the message is consistent. Like one day we're all going to die. You can't get away from that yet. Right. But, that's a good thing. It means that, we can actually be intentional about how we spend our time. Yeah. And a bucket list, at the end of the day is just a reminder to prioritize the things that are important to you. Mm-hmm. And it can show up as many different things. It can be something that is on your phone, on your fridge. It could be a meeting that you have with friends. Yeah. It could be 25 minutes that you carve out every Friday on your calendar to just remind you to prioritize those things that are, going to bring you that sense of purpose. Yeah. And I think it's, like obviously we kind of did the extreme where we dropped out of school, got in a van, crisscrossed across the country and never looked back. Right. But it doesn't need to be like that. Mm-hmm. If you, have a job and a mortgage and a family and, your life is filled up to your chin, you can still create space for the things that you really want. And I believe you really should. Yeah. Yeah. How do you create space on a daily basis for, happiness, one thing, but then also creating the things that you want? It's a really good question. And I guess the thing that I've been doing is I just realized how much I really prioritize work and how much time that takes up. And that if I actually reprioritize some of that, it doesn't affect my output too much. So I was of the mind that I just, got to work, as much as I can, and not really take time off. And I've sort of started to realize that, you can be as efficient or more efficient if you really like carve out the times you want to work and the times you don't want to work. Yeah. And start making decisions based on the I guess like the purpose level that it contains. So like if things come across your desk and it's something that you are like really resonates with you, it's like, okay, like I need to prioritize this. Yeah. And or if it's a trip with friends, it's like something that comes up and you just make it happen. Like you just have to commit to it. Like this is something that's important to me. Yeah. This happens once a year, if that. I know I have all this other stuff that I want to do, but it'll figure itself out. Like I'm not going to lose my job. I'm not going to lose a ton of money. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, 99% of the time you make those decisions and there's no adverse effect on your work. Yeah. So I think it's just, really like keeping that top of mind throughout the day of like, yeah, like I'm going to yoga. Like there's just, I'm I'm going to leave whatever I'm doing and I'm going to do it because that's what I need. And it's going to make work more productive. And I may have to leave a few minutes early or in between this thing, but like that's on my list of things to do today. And so I'm going to fucking do it.
Absolutely. So now what about you? So you're with your group of guys, but where do you see yourself going and what's your goals for the future?
So we started a production company and we've been producing TV shows that a lot of them have the same sort of ethos of buried life. So we just did a show for MTV called Dare to Live about a videographer who has the same kind of spirit, I think, as we do, who lives life to the fullest. And he shoots, films a different artist's live show every episode. And then he, the next day, takes that artist on an adventure to get them out of their comfort zone, to take them, doing things like shark diving or big wave surfing or, just getting outside of the hotel room or the tour bus. And so that, these types of shows have been really fun to make and be behind the camera. And then this, since I did the TEDx talk, speaking has become more and more of my life. And as I speak more about and learn more about mental health and the sort of situation that we're in as a country and as a just around the world, I am compelled to do it more and more. And as I become more vulnerable about it and, open up about it, I see more of an impact. And I think it's important for young people, to talk about this stuff because the really sad part is these kids that are 11 years old, 12 years old, that are in a place where they see no light, where they see no out, and their only option is to take their own life. And that is just like beyond tragic. And I think that if there are more young people that they relate to talking about, hey, I went through the same thing. It's okay. Like, you will get through it. Hang on, and please don't keep it inside. I think that is important, and especially, guys talking about it. So, I that has continued to draw me back to speaking, and so, and talking about like this idea that look, like, you can do anything you want is also like awesome. So, and thinking about that kind of stuff and what that looks like. So the Buried Life film, the production company, and speaking are my main focuses.
100%. It really is interesting, this whole movement of like vulnerability, especially with men. And you know Lewis Howes and his book that's coming out, and kind of very timely. So I love that you're
totally and like his book. I was just speaking with him yesterday. His book is really awesome. It really is. Like, I think that his I think anyone that can. I have a lot of respect for anyone that can show that type of vulnerability. And you look at like the problems that are going on in the world, most of them are guys that are like ego driven, that are wearing some sort of mask to feel like they, have that self-worth. And I think the world would be a lot better. We'd be in a lot better shape if we didn't do that. So, it's on all of us. Absolutely.
So what would be your top 3 book recommends?
Good question. I would say that the classic is How to Win Friends and Influence People. I really, let's see. God, this is a really good question. I'm going to say, because I just read it, Lewis Howes' book. I think that's like a very timely and an awesome book. It's called The Mask of Masculinity. And I recently read Night, which is Elie Wiesel's book. It's a classic about Elie Wiesel was a kid in the Holocaust.
Oh, wow.
And it's really a biography of his experience. And his resolve to make it through. And I think that, that was just a great hit of perspective, right? Like, you think about the things that we're struggling with and what we think are big deals, and then you remember like, oh yeah, like I don't live in a war-torn country. You know, I can walk outside my door. I'm not persecuted. Things could be a lot worse, and so that type of perspective I think is important. So
yeah, makes you grateful.
Yeah, totally.
Sounds like
gratitude is a great one. Yeah.
Do you practice gratitude, like any specific?
That's my next thing. I do, but I don't do it regularly, and I think that if I did that consistently, you know, just said like say thank you before I go to bed and thank you when I wake up, or you know, list a couple things that I'm grateful for. It's funny, my mom would say that as well. If I couldn't sleep, you know, when I was younger, she'd say, well, go through your gratitudes. What are the things that you're grateful for? And so to this day, I do that as well. If I'm having trouble sleeping, just list the things that you're grateful for. And you can feel the change in your body. You can physically feel the shift that's going on, which is pretty cool to have that instant, you know,
100%.
shift.
Yeah.
And I think too, like thinking about those little things that make those shifts, it's just incredible how powerful the mind is, you know, and when you can really harness it. And, you know, I was talking about anxiety the other day, and I think that anxiety is very similar to excitement in the feeling, right? And so if you start to feel anxiety and think about it just as excitement, you can actually shift that into excitement. Really? Yeah. I've done it. It's happened a couple times. If it's like a big speaking engagement or something, and I'm starting to feel a little anxious, I'm like, oh, that's actually excitement. And then it's excitement.
You can just train your mind.
Yeah.
I would say you got to be the Jedi of your own mind.
Yeah, totally. It's true.
Well, success in everything, it all really comes down to the mental game and how you see and what your perspective on life is. And which is what I love, like you're talking about today, is just all this stuff is about perspective.
Yeah, totally. It's like it's all in here.
Yeah. So what's creativity to you? Like, what's your creative outlet?
I love creating content, you know, making things happen. That's why the thing that I love about producing is you're creating something out of nothing. You start with an idea, and then you bring it all the way to this finished product. Yep. A television show, a film, you know, a short form video, and you know, it's the same with photographs, right? And then you have this thing that you're like, wow, this was nothing before, and now, you know, you've gone through this turmoil and the creative process sucks, and you finally make it at the end, and you're either over it or you're like, yes, we did it. Yeah. So, but really, like, you know, getting into that creation of those, you know, these TV shows and creating new formats and stuff like that, and I think is my creative outlet. And then as well, speaking. I would say that speaking might be the only time that I feel like I'm in flow state, you know? Yeah. Like I have these moments where I feel like I'm really speaking from a place of truth, and I, you know, kind of am speaking, and I think about it for a second. I'm like, wait, I don't know what I'm talking. Like, I don't know what I've just been saying, but I think it's been good. Yeah. You know, and like you kind of zone out and you sort of get into, and I think it, like, when I'm really speaking about something that I'm passionate about and I really believe in, then I feel like that's like I can see the impact in people, and that is like the best sort of creative outlet experience, because it's like, you know, you're creating this this experience for people, and you can see the actual impact, which is really cool and powerful. So yeah, what about you?
My creative outlet. Yeah. I have so many of them, and it's hard to focus them all, which is what I'm working on now. But photography is my main passion and what I love, but I also love doing podcasts and talking to inspiring people like yourself. And I've been painting some murals as well. And, you know, I think I love to be able to wake up and create whatever I want every day. And that's it's a blessing.
Yeah, it really is. So that's cool. I mean, because you've been doing podcasts for a while now. You know, you've talked with a couple people.
Yeah,
Is it just been like
handful.
information by osmosis where you feel like you're learning every time, or you feel like you're really, because it's a great sort of like educational experience.
It really
that you
is.
get to have, just by virtue of like talking with a myriad of different types of people. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%. I get to sit down with people that I'm fascinated by and dive in and learn from them, and also be able to share that with everyone who's listening. So it's very exciting. Very exciting.
Awesome.
So one last question I'd love to ask all my guests is, what does the phrase live inspiration mean to you?
Live inspiration to me means, it may sound cliche, but it's living your purpose. Like it's living it's following that inner voice and that inner sort of gut that I was talking about before. Because, if you say living inspiration, I think that is how you feel inspired yourself, and that's how you inspire other people.
Yeah.
And I look at the people that I really respect, and it's people that have done that. Like anyone that has sort of forged their own path or done something that stands out, they had to do that because they weren't following anybody else. They were just being themselves. So I think that like living inspiration is being yourself and being true to yourself. And, that's not an easy thing to do. Like it sounds simple, but to really be true to yourself is a dance, like it's easier for some people than others. But I think that is, ultimately the place you want to get to, because then you're not relying on other people's gratification, and you're really just, you get that from within. So you're sort of like, fuck it, I'm just doing what I'm doing. And I think that's ultimately how you are successful.
Right.
I think that's what brings the most success.
Love that. Well, Ben, I acknowledge you for the difference that you're making in the world, and you're inspiring me. You're inspiring so many people. So thank you.
You too, man. Thank you.
Thank you. So where can people find you on the interwebs? Follow what you're up to.
The Webernets.
The Webernets. I like that one. I like that one.
Yeah, I'd say it's all my name. I think it's just at Ben Nemtin on all the things. And then the Buried Life as well is our social. So that's what's up.
Fantastic. Well, thanks again.
Thanks, my man. I appreciate it.